All right, good morning everyone. How's everybody doing? Good to see you. My name is Paul Trani. We're going to dive into getting started in Photoshop. And if you're new to Photoshop, this is the place to be. Welcome everybody. If you're joining me on YouTube, you can hop over to behance.net/live. That'd be fantastic. So Arun, Sukumar, Taker, everyone, if you can hop over to behance.net/live. Everybody, welcome. Good to see you, Patrick, Simon, Felicia. Good to have you here. Siobhan, we're going to dive into this. Yes, we're going to talk about, looks like there's already some questions coming in. Something about exporting PSDs from Illustrator, some other stuff. But I'm here to answer those questions for you. My name is Paul Trani. And we're going to dive into this right now. Glad you like the opening music. So why? That's compliments of Andrew Apple Pie. So basically what we have going on this week is it is a Photoshop week. So we have a fantastic 3-day event coming, starting with these awesome people. Victoria Seamer, otherwise known as Witchoria. So she's really cool and does a lot of surrealistic compositions, things like that. This is all starting tomorrow. Okay, so Victoria, Shauna, Nathaniel Dodson, otherwise known as Tootvids or Tutvids, however you want to say that, will be joining us. And then Jesse Thomas and Taylor Crisdale from Jess3, which is like, I don't know if you say Jess3 or Jesse, but basically it's an awesome marketing agency, so you need to kind of keep track of them. So yeah, it's going to be super cool, fun week, but the goal of this stream is a teaching stream to teach you good old Photoshop is the plan. So hopefully that works for everybody. Patrick, good to have you here. Santaya as well. And again, I'm trying to keep track of 2 chats. If you can jump over to behance.net/live, that would make my job a little easier. That'd be fantastic. All right, folks. So yes, Thomas, good to have you here as well. All right, so Sherry's still working on that pen tool. All right, we're going beyond the pen tool because we're talking Photoshop today, and we can always talk about the differences between the two, but essentially what we're going to do is I'm going to cover sort of Photoshop, an introduction to like the workspace. I want to demystify it for you. Okay, so, you know, I want you to get up and running quickly, and I'm thinking through this as if I'm a new user, right? So what are some of the common tasks that you need to know how to do? So let's check out Photoshop. Let's get familiar with it. You know, we'll understand different file types, maybe when we should use Illustrator over Photoshop or Photoshop over Illustrator. You know, global color adjustments, easy things you can do, and even if you know Photoshop, by the way, Siobhan and Colin and Arnie Verlinger, even if you know Photoshop, I think this is going to be really beneficial for you. Editing specific areas of photos, so like removing content, maybe selecting things. We could spend hours just talking about selections. So, but nonetheless, we're going to dive into that. Most common tool, guess what? Aside from the selection tool, is the text tool. So of course we're going to be using text, adding some text, and then we'll do some fun compositing. So if that is cool with you, I want you to get excited about what we're doing and even show off some stuff if you don't mind. Again, my name is Paul Trani. This is getting started in Photoshop. Hello, Mario. So these are just some fun projects I thought I'd show you just to get you inspired. Here's sort of a crossover between, say, Photoshop and Illustrator. You can see this, Thor and Friends, and I thought this was appropriate, seeing as Infinity War. I went and saw it this weekend, and it's awesome. So again, this sort of thing can be done in Photoshop, maybe started in Illustrator and then finished in Photoshop. I will dive into this one. This is actually the cover to my MacBook Pro. You can see that it's called Skull Cover, but essentially compositing something like this together, right? So again, taking more of a designer's approach to this. Even what we have here, right? So this is another example of, you know, Photoshop. And by the way, this actually is a little bit of 3D, if you don't mind. Just to show you, yes, I'm running 3D and streaming software and everything else. Oh, Sherry, if you are new to masks, this session's for you. I'm glad you're here because, like, if you could master masks, which I want you to, you know, this is going to be fantastic. But look, this is actually a 3D. Look at this. It's actually 3D in Photoshop just because I can. I thought it'd be cool. Look at those, like, look at those butterflies. Right? Can you see that? Those butterflies kind of coming out of her fingers. But again, all done in Photoshop. And again, really, there are no limits to what you can do in Photoshop. So, and Ina, welcome to Behance. Good to have you here. Awesome. Let's close that. Again, just getting you inspired for what you can do, taking things to the next level. Maybe it's more of an illustrative look like you have here. Maybe it's something like this, where all these people actually are actually 3D models. But again, compositing photos together, right? Here's another simple example. Super easy to do, double exposure. I can show you how to do that, no problem. But let's go ahead and get started now. I'll be manning chat. Oh, thank you, Sandcats. Nice design, Paul. Thank you, sir. This may or may not be my second coffee, a medium-sized Philharmonic. Welcome, Ina from South Africa. All right, so let's kind of dive into this. Maybe we'll get away from the angry bear and deal with something a little bit more straightforward, a typical family photo. And what I'm going to click through is a lot of these type of things, sort of like understanding the Photoshop workspace, you know, cropping a photo, making all these adjustments. This is everything I've talked about, right? The first thing we want to do is like we want to get familiar with the Photoshop workspace, right? So I can change the workspace to essentials. I can get familiar with the library panel. Library panel is brand new, right? But this is the photo I'm going to deal with, which is just going to be cropping it and doing some global color adjustments. All right. Just so you know what I'm doing, here's my projects. I can go to Window, down to Workspace. We can see Essentials. And if you move, that's what I typically do. I will set it to maybe Essentials, and then I'll start moving panels around because all of these can, you know, be pulled out. And that's what you do. Like, okay, I need my library panel right here, that sort of thing. But really what I want to do is I want to reset it. I want to reset Essentials. So this is traditionally what you'll get in Photoshop. Okay, so you'll get the Layers panel, your Libraries panel, your Properties panel. Okay, and you can close each one of these. So what are one of the most important panels in Photoshop? You probably know this. I know Tim knows this. Cindy might. Tell me if you do, Cindy. But the Layers panel right down here, this gets to be super important. Okay. And this just happens to be a PSD already. That's what I have open. But again, I can open up JPEGs, any file I want. File open. And open up that, you know, JPEG, for instance. If I open up a JPEG, by the way, so select open, you know, you can see right over here. It says, hey, I'm one layer, but I'm locked. So like, can you mess with me, right? So again, you'll click on a brush and you'll try to paint. You can still actually paint on it, but if you want to move things around, it's because it might be locked. Okay, but this is what a typical JPEG looks like. Going back to this file, what do I want to do? I want to crop it, because look, if I take a look and just kind of draw a selection, you can see that this is actually set at a curve, or set at an angle, right? So can we crop and straighten this photo? The answer is yes. You better be able to. So that's what I'm going to do now, right? Typically, that's what you want to do. Let's crop and straighten this photo. Let's do some quick color correction. Right over here. Let's select this tool. One of the most popular, most widely used tools, the crop tool. Clicking on that. And right up here at the top, actually, first off, notice I already get these controls, so I can kind of adjust accordingly, right? I can shrink this down and maybe like rotate it just by putting my cursor out there and try to get it right. Or another thing I can do is, with that crop tool selected, is use this, straighten. So Thomas knows about this. Welcome, Thomas Benner. If I use this straighten tool, I can just draw, straighten, And I'm going to do a couple things. Ready? Let's take a look at some of these different options. Content aware fill area will fill outside areas, right? That's what I want. I'm going to turn this on, right? Boom. And this is what the magic does. Let's go to straighten. All I have to do is draw a line. I'm just drawing a line along that horizon because I want that to be straight. So this is going to be cropping and straightening. Boop. There it goes. Look what happens down here. So what's going to happen is it's going to say, hey, I have all these little gaps now that it's straightened, right? Or what if you accidentally made it a little wider like that? Well, that's where this content aware fill comes in right here. Okay, so it's going to fill in all these little gaps, right up here, all these little gaps. As soon as I hit enter, it fills it in for me. Will this include color grading? Harshit, this is all about getting started in Photoshop. So yes, we're definitely going to get into color correction right now. All right, so maybe not color grading to the extent that you might be familiar with it, but this is the quick and easy stuff that we can do. Okay. Yeah, global color. Yeah, thank you so much for helping me, Thomas. Okay, so this is typically what people will do, right, in Photoshop. You go up here, you go to like, we need to change the whole thing, the whole, you know, we need to brighten up this whole image, right? So you can go to image and then adjustments. We know we don't want to use this because if we go to image and then adjustments and do any of these things, it's going to change it so we can't go back. So again, image adjustments, levels, for instance, or even more simply, the very top one, which is brightness and contrast, right? We can select brightness and contrast and increase that brightness and that contrast. Okay, once I click OK, what's the problem with that? This is where I point to the audience and I say, hey, Felicia knows, Esther probably knows. It's destructive, right? Because what does it do? It doesn't give me a layer over here. And probably the most important thing is layers in Photoshop. So I don't want to do anything destructively, so I could just undo. And I would typically want to add this as a layer. So I can go layer, new adjustment layer. In fact, let's do this an even easier way. Let's pull out this layers panel. Since we know we want it to be a layer, let's use the layers panel. And right over here, right down here, going down to this guy, click. Oh, it says, hey, you want to add a layer, maybe a solid color, maybe your brightness and contrast, maybe something called levels. We can do that. Click levels. Levels is going to give you levels as expected. Goes that. So what happened? It gives me these levels over here in the properties panel, right? And it gives me this levels layer right over here. So if you master this, this is easy stuff, but if you master this, this is huge. So thank you, Marco Bruzzi. He says, hey, you know, use adjustment layers. I'll do you one better than that, by the way. This escalates. I think there's something here for everyone. So levels is what I've done. Thank you so much, Marco. Perfect. Anytime I see auto, I typically click auto. So I'll click auto. Wait for it, bink. And it made those adjustments. And I can kind of tweak it some more, make the blacks darker, or just kind of brighten this up because it definitely needs to be a sunnier day. But I'm manipulating everything. I'm manipulating this adjustment layer that I can, sure enough, turn on and off. So before, after, right? So what would you typically do, Jackie, or Alexander, or Alan? Like, you'd maybe add a couple of these, right? So you're thinking, okay, I'll come down here. I'll add maybe hue and saturation, right? You'll add a couple of these. Okay, let's add some saturation to this. And that's perfectly fine. But I'm going to go beyond that, by the way, as he starts to change colors a lot. You know, and what happens is after a while, after you add more brightness and contrast, maybe exposure, whatever, you end up with a lot of these adjustment layers. You can add as many as you want. And what I want to kind of show you, Marco and Harshit, is how you can just do an instant, like, make it look better, right? That's what we want. So I'm actually going to get rid of all of these, because I'm thinking there has to be a make it better button. This is probably sort of an underused option in Photoshop, is camera raw filter, right? And I know it has a weird name. We don't need to talk about that. It should just be called the make it better filter, right? Because with this camera raw, click all those various settings, all those various like levels and adjustments and hue and saturation. Guess what? That's already going to be in here. Look at the amount of control I have. Look at all of this stuff right off to the side. In fact, look right over here. Thank you so much. Like I said before, an auto button. And rather than just dealing with the, you know, brightness and contrast and whites and blacks, deal with everything. Click auto, boop. And then it adjusts it, right? So I can now increase maybe the contrast or the exposure. But I usually hit that auto button, and now I have all these fun settings all in one dialog that I can play with, right? And then adjust accordingly. Let's shift the temperature a little bit, and now it doesn't look like muddy water anymore. Okay, let's crank that up. So, you know, Alexander or Siobhan, I don't know if you play with Camera Raw at all, but I think it's a good idea too, because it's nice, right? And the cool thing, so Siobhan says, you know, I need to use Camera Raw more, and, you know, ooh, yes, your phone takes raw format pictures, and I don't know what it means really. So yeah, you could use this on raw photos, but you could use it on any JPEG. So you don't think that you have to use raw photos to use Camera Raw filter. Also, by the way, you can use Adobe Photoshop Lightroom Mobile, the mobile app, and you can shoot in Camera Raw on Lightroom Mobile. So you can use your phone and shoot in RAW, which is awesome. But this is typically what I like to do. So you can, if you want to get more advanced, look at this. Since we talked about hues or the different saturation, what do you get? You get more settings in here for you pros, for the Thomas Benners of the world, for the Tim Mobests of the world, when you're dealing with color, right? You know, down here, we have vibrance and saturation. What's the difference between those two, huh? What's that all about? Check this out. I can crank up vibrance, and it doesn't turn him into like an Oompa Loompa. It doesn't make him look orange. So vibrance tends to, it's more subtle, but it protects skin tones, as opposed to saturation, which indiscriminately will change all the colors, you know, regardless. So vibrance is a little more subtle. You can see it's affecting more of that green, or excuse me, the blue around this little guy. Around Jonah is my nephew. He's not my child, although I would love to claim him. He's a gem. All right, click OK. Boom, there we are. Yes, I worked destructively. Yeah, whole other deal. Let's talk about that later. Hey, let's do, I did global color adjustments, right? I did global color adjustments by using all of these fun little options. All right, that was fun. By using all these fun little options, right? Vibrance, hue, and saturation. But then I ended up using Camera Raw, just to recap. But now I want to do some local photo edits. That's going to happen to this right now. If you're curious as to why we're doing this, because this week is a Photoshop week. We have Victoria Seamer. You got to see her work. Look for Witchoria online. She's awesome. And Shauna Lynn does amazing work with Michael Jarrett from Adobe. Nathaniel Dodson, again, is two vids. So anyways, we got a bunch of experts in this week, and this is your getting started, your shortcut to awesomeness this week, because we're going to have challenges, daily challenges. This gets you up and running quickly. And this is what we're doing now as well, which is covering the workspace. Talked a little bit about file types. Basically, we're editing pixels here. Did some global color adjustments. Let's edit specific areas of a photo now. Again, my name is Paul Trani. Sherry has a question. How do you resize a photo when bringing in a JPEG when DPI might be 72 and you need 300 DPI for a print? Sherry, that's a fantastic question and a huge struggle, right? You know, and the short of it is, you know, if you only have 72 pixels an inch, like you only have that many pixels. So resizing a photo, you can't bring back pixels that are not there is what I'm saying. So if a client sends you a super small photo and says blow it up into a billboard size, you're just not going to have the number of pixels. If you do go to image size, that's where you'll do your resizing. And sure, you can, you know, take this up to 300. But again, it's duplicating pixels and will not be that clear, despite some of these options. So you do have the ability to preserve some details without making it blurry, but in general, and this will even reduce the noise. And so we could do different things, but if you only have 72 pixels, I don't know what to tell you. So anyways, that being said, I'm working on small photos. It's okay. All right, Alexander, thank you for jumping to Behance. Again, if you're on YouTube, hop over to behance.net/live. These files, I'm going to go ahead and give you these files, too, if you're interested in just kind of playing around. Here are the files, and I'm posting them on Behance because that's where I am. Boom. All right, so let's, not that I don't love these children in the background, but let's see if we can remove them, huh? How about that? Again, I don't know these kids. I don't know who they are. I don't know. So what do? We can talk about selection methods. I'm just going to use the good old lasso tool. Third one down. We can make a selection. So we can kind of drag, zoop, click and drag around these guys like that. Right? Hopefully you can see that selection. See those marching ants? They're selected now. Now what I can do, what people would maybe do in the past is use like the rubber stamp, right? The rubber stamp allows you to select an area, right? And then rubber stamp over it, right? Which is fine. That works. And again, that is the rubber stamp tool. Click on that. If you just start to click, yeah, it'll actually ask you to sample an area. So that's how I can remove it. But you know what I'm going to do. When would you use the patch tool versus the spot healing brush? Fantastic. Thank you so much for thinking that way. So this is what I'm doing is I need to fill in this area and we'd use a content aware technology. Oftentimes I will go to, this is me personally, I'll go to edit, fill. And rather than filling with a color, the foreground color would be red, which would be a horrible idea. I can change this to content aware. So this is content aware fill, click, and it will fill it in with the content around them. Okay, that works out well. I'm going to answer your question right now too. Let's like select this little guy here. Don't worry, they're still alive. So the thing is like these all work the same way, right? They all do. This is the content aware tool set right over here. Okay. So we have patch, content aware move. I think we know what's going to happen there if we do a content aware move. Let's do content aware move. Content aware move over here. Enter. It moves and then patches in that area. So they're all doing a content aware thing, but just in different ways. I'd typically use the patch tool, because the patch tool will enable you to, you know, select what you want to remove. In this case, these two people. And then the patch, I can go ahead and pick the area. So notice how, hopefully you can see that I'm sliding this to the right or to the left or onto his head. But the patch tool allows you to control where that's going to sample from. So I will use typically the patch tool in this case. Right? Don't worry, no children were harmed in the making of this. Selecting. Oh, let's sample from over here. I hope this is not a child, because they're out way too far. Again, we're just removing content at this point. Content aware. Boom. And in this case, specifically the patch tool. Zoop. Yeah, that's what the patch tool does. It all uses content-aware technology. It's the same thing. I mean, it's the same technology going behind the scenes. In fact, we've used the very first thing we did in here used a content-aware technology, and that was the crop tool. So again, I can be kind of loose with it. It's going to be fine. It's going to get covered up. Okay, so you ready for this? Yeah, we could do some spot healing as well. In fact, let me jump to a more. Oh, let me show you some more things. Let's do this. Let's just select this area. Boom. Fill with content aware. Get rid of that sidewalk. Let's see what's going to happen. Right over there. Boop. Look at that. Boom. Filled it in. No more sidewalk. Are you impressed? I hope so. What about this? Spot removal, right? Let's do exactly what it removes spots. So typically with photos, you're okay removing something that would be gone in a week anyway. So in this case, we're going to use the spot healing brush tool, right? Let's just use this fun brush. Let's come in here. Say, okay, buddy, sorry you're having a bad day. I get it. We've all been there. What do? Spot healing brush. We'll sample from the best area around, right? It just does it automatically. The healing brush makes me sample, right? So I would say, hey, sample from right here and put it, right? See what's happening? It's taking those pixels, sample, put them right there. This is the healing brush. Spot healing brush makes those decisions for you. Poor guy. Let's remove this weird thing on his ear. What is that? Oh, that's an earring. Oh, I see. It's just, it's not that he has bad skin. He has bad taste. I'm kidding. Joke. Yes, Alexander says it's great for electrical wires and cracks and stuff. Oh, it's so awesome. Yeah, I can talk all day about it. Okay, so those are my content-aware tools right over here. You need to remove something? Use a Band-Aid, right? Use content-aware technology. We can easily clean this guy up like super fast and be super happy with where we're at with it. Right, he already looks better. Again, this is the what we started with, and that what we ended up with as well. All right, let's move on. Yes, so that's a good point. So Alex, does the healing brush retain the skin texture, or does it smooth the skin texture? It will sample, but oftentimes it will match the tone around it. So let's just try this. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to sample this upper left. Excuse me. Healing brush tool, sample this upper left area right down here. See how much brighter it's going to make it? Let's click right there. See how it matched the tone? It matches the tone for that area, but maps the pixels to it. So is that not awesome? That is awesome, right? Super cool. It matches the tone of the area. You might notice a little bit of blurring around the edges, just kind of depends. Again, when we came down to the texture, notice how we've kind of fixed, it matches the texture and everything back here as well. In fact, I can kind of clean this up right here. There we go. Okay, so let's do something fun now. Let's add some text. So this is what I'm going to do. This is for our buddy Jonah. So I'm using the text tool right down here. You get it. Scale it up. And I'm going to change the font. Let's make it a bold. Something like that. In fact, I'm going to type in black. Ooh, let's use Acumen. For you pros out there, you ready for this? Alex and Alexander and Mitch and everyone. I'm using a variable font, right? So I just typed in the word Jonah right over here in my properties panel. Zoop. Right down here. This is a variable font, so I can adjust the weight and the width. So I can take this, wait for it, from thin to extra thick, all with the slider. And not only that, I can adjust the width and the slant in this case. So let's not make it slanted, but let's increase the width. And what's happening here is it's going through all of these fonts. Are you not impressed with that? Hopefully you like that, Esther. Switching over to, if you're joining me on YouTube, hop over to behance.net/live. How often do I save this after making adjustments? So, that's a good question. And we'll have to talk about that, because there's some things that I have not done yet. All right, so here's my text. This looks fine for now. Let's put the properties panel back. So many things to talk about. So many things to talk about. Are these variable fonts in a separate place in Typekit? Not many of them are even in Typekit. So the reason there aren't that many of them is because, watch, let me do this drop down. Look at how, this is one font. This is Acumen Pro, the variable font. Look at how many different fonts they made. This is individual fonts. It's not a pseudo bold or anything like that. So this is why there's not that many variable fonts, is because there's so many different, variables that you have to put in. So many different fonts get rolled into one. Yeah, so I love it. Richard likes it as well. So kind of harder to find. If you have updated Photoshop to the latest version, you should have Acumen already. So that's fantastic. Okay, so let's get into here. Let's talk about layers and some other things, right? What did I do? I just typed in some text, typed in Jonah, right? We can see that text right over here. Okay, fantastic. Here's my layers panel. Cool, right? I can move this around. These two are going to be separate, right? Another thing a lot of people do is sort of like deal with layer modes, layer blend modes, that is. So you're going to like this, Marco. Yes, boom, Marco mentions it. Even though he's on YouTube, come over to Behance. What about giving the text the look like it's right behind the subject, but in front of the background? Ugh, I love how you're thinking. I love where your head's at. That's why I like talking to designers. So, I'm going to do that. First, I want to talk about the layer blend modes, because maybe that's something you want to deal with. Since this is higher, for instance, rather than being big and bold and white, what if we play with the blend mode right over here? Sure, we have opacity. I can take the opacity down. But let's do something else right over here. Clicking in here. Let's change this to, say, darken, and see what happens. Nothing, because it's white. But typically you'll go through these different color modes. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the color of this just to give you an idea. I'm going to change it to red. There, this is going to be easier to see. So here's that red text. Let me make sure it's coming through okay. And let me kind of go through the different color modes, right? So change this to darken. See, that's what happens with these layer modes. So you get a lot of cool effects using these layer modes. I can change this to overlay, for instance, and that's pretty cool as well. So I encourage you to use layer modes any way you want. I might change the color of this. I don't know. I'm just kind of playing with things. That's not bad. I kind of like this. I like overlay mode. By the way, you know you could hit Shift plus. We all know that. But did you know you can do your Shift Command O or S? Hold on, escape. It's Shift Option. Apparently I'm launching Bridge. But you can hold down Shift Option S for screen, O for overlay, M for multiply, because I typically only use a certain number of them. So there's shortcut keys for pretty much anything. Okay, so I'm going to do what someone mentioned, Marco. We want to cut out. So you want to put this text behind him, which means I need to cut him out, right? I need to create a layer sandwich. So what I'm doing now is we're getting into selections. Okay, so this gets to be really important. Dealing with selections, right? So this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to duplicate this layer. Let's turn that off. And I'm going to use, rather than using my lasso, I'll use just the quick selection tool. Using the quick selection tool, selecting it right over here for that photo, I can just click on his head and it will start to select those areas, right? I can make the brush size smaller or larger using the top bar, but I'm actually selecting him because I need to sort of extract him out of this. Oh no, I messed up, right? We can hold down, if you're curious, I can hold down the Option key to remove. But this is what I'll typically start with. Honestly, all I need is his head. I only need to really extract his head at this point, which sounds weird. But I'm just using the quick selection tool to save us time, right? Selecting this little guy. Cool, so I have him selected. All right, so what I could do with him selected is I could do this. I can like invert it. Basically, I can, you know, invert that selection by going to select, you know, inverse, basically. So I'm selecting the background, and then I can hit a terrible key, which is delete, right? Thomas knows that we don't want to use the delete key if we can help it, right? We don't want to remove those pixels forever. Because as I take a look, I'm like, oh no, I missed his shorts. How do I bring his shorts back? So I'm going to undo that. And instead, what we want to do is we want to add a layer mask. So somebody mentioned, oops. I'm in a temporary office here at Adobe. But I want to add a layer mask. A layer mask is going to mask out parts of that layer, exactly as the name says. Right down here, add a layer mask, right? So that's all I need to do. With the background selected, I can add a layer mask. Click. And that happens as well. See, boop. Let's undo this. Let me make this a little more simple. I'm going to make sure this guy's selected. Okay, so we selected him. On that layer, we're going to click Layer Mask. And now we've extracted him. What's happened right over here? We could see that it added this layer mask, and whatever's black has disappeared, whatever's white stays. So I can come over here and I can paint with white if I want to, as long as I'm on that layer. And if you can master layer masks, this is like most of your life for compositing and just creating in Photoshop. So using my brush tool, coming over here, making sure, guess what? This foreground color is set to white. And then I can paint. Let me crank up this opacity. I can paint away, right? So I can bring that part back. But more importantly, I can bring back his shorts right down here. Let's make the brush smaller. Bringing back his shorts right there. So those are layer masks. Boom, Ahmed knows. David had to, in his day, he had to trudge through 3 miles of snow to make selections. By the way, like, we could spend a whole day on just making selections. It's all about making selections and then creating a layer mask. But what have I done? I've made a little layer sandwich, if you will. So that background's still there. Here's my text, right? Let's even change this to white. So rather than being in front of both of those, let's put the text in between that part that's cut out, just like that, our layer sandwich. Sure enough, we can see that he is in front now as well. Because that's what you want to do with your family photos. Boom, boom, boom. Something like that. Okay. Yes, thank you. So you can also hold the Alt key. So Ahmed says you can hold the Alt key or Option key and click on the layer mask thumbnail to see it. That's something I don't do. That's very good. I like that. Again, just clicking on that layer. Big thing is just to kind of remember which you have selected, whether it's the layer or the layer mask. But now we've made that layer sandwich. Let's do something more advanced. Let's go to this bear, for instance. Since we're talking about selections, what if we wanted to select this, right? We could use our quick selection tool and try to select this bear. But you have the ability to select things that are in focus, right? Because for this bear, just select the bear since it's in focus. So under select, going right down here, let's use focus area. Ooh, there's even subject. I'm so excited about this. Sherry, this is going to be awesome. Focus area, the no hands approach. It's going to go through automatically. I have to keep my hands here so you know I'm not messing with anything. Select that bear, at least a good portion of the bear in this case. We can increase the in focus range or decrease it to get more or less of the bear. But isn't this easy, by the way? Let's output this to a new layer with a layer mask. So essentially we're saying, hey, we know what you're doing. We know you want to make a layer sandwich. So why don't we just make a new layer for you with this layer mask? I'm like, thank you so much, Photoshop. I appreciate it. Click OK. It'll go through. And sure enough, it made these two layers, you know, and then here's the one I have to deal with. Like I just mentioned, I can go ahead and, you know, do this. Fix this part. So again, that's what I wanted to show is focus area selection. Oops. I want to show you one more thing. This is brand new. Let's try, what else do I have? What's a cool... Wait 1 second. Give you a sneak peek at what I'm working on personally. But there's also subject selection mode as well. This is kind of what I'm working on, just if you're interested in compositing. You could see this is a real world project using everything that we know so far, which is, again, what do we have in here? We have hue and saturation. So an adjustment layer is in here. Click, right? So I just had to shift the tone of that mouse to match the background. For the mouse himself right here, I had to cut that mouse out and I had to eliminate some things. So there's a layer mask on that layer. Let's add in a little bit of cheese and you get the idea. Because, yes, awesome. Cool. So again, this is just you know, this is kind of a prequel to what the theme is tomorrow for the challenge. That's what I'm working on. This is a hint as to what the challenge is tomorrow. I'm making an example. But I'm also showing you that everything's done with these layer masks and adjustment layers and different things. I actually want to take this real fast and show you this. You ready for this? Let's do one more selection method. Maybe we even want to put text in here. Check this out. Go to select. I haven't even done this yet. Look, select the subject. Select that guy flying through the sky on his cool bicycle. Select that subject. Cross our fingers. I don't know what's going to happen, but that's what I like about this. These aren't demo files. Some are, sure. Boom. It selected it. Boom. Look at that. Oh, guess what? Make those layer sandwiches. Make that mask, right? Boom. He's extracted. And then this is, I don't know, I'd call this extreme, right? There you go. Your text. There's the sandwich. And that's all done using selecting the subject matter. Did you hear that, Juan Pablo? All right. And I'll explain again the layer mask. This is what the layer mask does right here. Everything that's black right over here, if I start painting in black, it's going to hide those pixels. So right in here, that's what the layer mask does. Selecting the paintbrush, making sure there's black right here, and then right over here, making sure I have a smaller brush. I can paint with black. See what I'm doing? I'm painting with black, and it's disappearing right there. That's what the layer mask does. You learn layer masks, you get comfortable with layer masks and selections, and that's most of your work in Photoshop. All right, I will check, not only show you the schedule, but also check my outline as well. Again, this is what's happening tomorrow. Join me at 9 a.m. Pacific time. I'm only going to go for about 5 more minutes. But we got a full day, 3 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of Photoshop experts that are going to do amazing things. Thank you so much. Carol Pearl says, black conceals, white reveals. Very nice. I like it. And again, we're just kind of going through we can make local color adjustments. We made global color adjustments. Edit specific areas of a photo. So we removed things from photos, but it's all about making selections is how you edit specific areas. You make those selections and then move on from there. And then you composite photos together as well. So perfect. So, and then what we'd want to do is like composite some photos together. Again, this is real world stuff I'm working on. Here's our guys flying through the air. We painted in black because black conceals, white reveals, as Carol so elegantly explained. We can add photos together. So let's try grabbing some other assets. Let's grab some of the stuff. We're going to have some fun. Let's try this. Why not? Back to our original photo, we're talking about compositing. We could take a number of photos. Again, we can do a selection method. In fact, this is where I'd probably use the magic wand because there's so much white going on here. I'd use the magic wand, I'd take down the tolerance, and I'd say, hey, you know what? Just select the contiguous pixels. Not all the white, just the white out here, clicking once. And I can add and remove, adjusting the tolerance, but that's typically what I do here to extract this. Holding down the shift key, clicking in these white areas, because I don't want them to select the boat, but just get these parts like that is what I do in this case. It's not going to be perfect. Copy. Where is our little friend? Let's remove that. There we go. Beach photo. Pasting this in. There's our boat. Shrinking that down. We're doing compositing, right? Bringing that back there. Bringing that underneath that text. And now we can have, again, this just called layer 1. Oh, shoot. Sorry. Sorry about that. I hate it when I do that. Wrong screen. Sorry about that. Help me. So anyways, all I did is I just cut out this this boat, and I used the magic wand to cut out this boat. Once I cut it out, I pasted it in. It comes in as its own layer, right? So now I can put that back there. What would you typically do? I get it. You'd probably duplicate the boat, flip it, right? Put it down here, make it semi-transparent, right? You got to add your reflection and maybe a little bit of ripple distortion. Again, I'm just doing this really fast because I'm going to be done in about 3 minutes. Add a little ripple distortion to that boat right back there. Again, just doing this quickly. I would typically add a layer mask, and again, this is just where I start to show off, you know, gradate out just the top there, and now I've gradated that out. I need to add color adjustments. Somebody mentioned, oh yeah, we could put this in. I wanted to put in a shark, and I wanted to put in an octopus. I don't think I'm gonna have time. But again, I did just drop in this boat. We'd typically add some color correction to this whole thing. You have color lookup tables, and I want to point that out because that typically makes things look really good right down here. Color lookup. Again, this gets a little advanced, but here's my color lookup table, LUT, as it's known. Technically comes from like the film industry, but I can say, hey, you know what? Just give me a 3-strip look, for instance. Give me bleach bypass. You know, give me all of these like almost like Instagram type filters. We could do crisp warm. You get the idea. And then what you end up with, we'll just open up my final vacation photo. You know, here's an example of like the final one that I was working on. It's like, hey, let's put in a big, yeah, a big octopus behind Jonah, because that was really nice of me to do. And then here's that color lookup table that I can start to change and all that good stuff. So anyway. What this does is it emulates film stock. I think we'll change this to horror blue. Oh, anyway. I hope you learned, Ina. I hope you learned something new in Photoshop. Again, I was trying to click through all of these things that I wanted to do. So much to learn. Again, we kind of got down, clear down to compositing photos together, which is what I was working on right here. Compositing photos together. And you get it. Maybe even adding some birds. Why not? Add some birds. You get the idea. But I'm going to let you go. We have a full day tomorrow of live streaming, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific time. So make sure you join me and our esteemed guests on behance.net/live if you're not joining me there already. So just going to check to see if there are any final questions here in a moment. As soon as I drag Jonah's name over there. There we are, Jonah. My nephew. Who's actually going to college next year. So he's no longer this little kid. But there we have it. Changing this once more. There we are. It's going to say, Jonah, look out! There's a huge octopus behind you. All right. So OpenTech asks if you can change the filters by using the arrow keys. No, you can't. I wish you could. I think you're talking about the color lookup table, and I really wish you could. Okay, so Carol Pearl talks about Photoshop 3D teachers. Hey, you know what? You have one like right in front of you, right? Because what is this anyways? What is this right here? The skull? The skull's 3D. But the thing is we have Adobe Dimension now for compositing our 3D and 2D together. So, but what is it? Corey Barker does a lot of 3D for Photoshop users. But nonetheless, that's all 3D. That's just another example just to get you inspired. Let me know if you have any... Ooh, graphic battles would be super fun. So, Alexander, let's have one. But thank you so much for watching. I'm going to let everybody go. Seems like we're kind of getting down to the wire. Tomorrow's challenge, I can't tell you about it yet, but I will say that this is a big hint as to what tomorrow's challenge is all about. Yes, it's extreme. But join me tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Pacific time. Myself. And really, it's all about Victoria Seamer. Witchoria. She's a really good, very strong Photoshop user that just makes cool atmospheric things. And it's going to be good. So, thank you so much, Paul and Christopher and Scott and Fred. Thank you so much for joining me today. Join me tomorrow morning. And that's about it. So, yes, love to see you there. And, yeah, you can watch this anytime you want. And we will see you tomorrow, Dana Pride and Siobhan. Make sure you join me. It'd be super fun to have you as well, David and everyone. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a wonderful day.